All right, hey, how's it going? Yeah, probably a few minutes ago, you probably saw me on the post where I was talking about how I basically grew my career, accelerated my career from 55K to 110K to 250K. And you're probably thinking, how the hell that happened, right? Let me tell you what didn't happen, right? I didn't have an MBA. I didn't grind for 40 years. I didn't come from elite backgrounds. And I didn't wait for a promotion that could have happened, right? What I did do is kind of figure out how to really navigate through my career in a way that really helps me move forward faster. And so one of the things I noticed that a lot of professionals, they basically get stuck around 80 to 120K, range, right, for a very long time, sometimes for decades or it's the rest of their career. And so one of the things I realized is that it's not because they're not good enough. It typically is just because they don't really know how to position themselves for, the big opportunities. And so today what I'll do, I'll share my screen and so on. I'll walk you through kind of like, the steps that I specifically took to really accelerate my career, right? From IC, individual contributor, to, VP in under 5 years, right? Going from 55K jobs to 250K jobs, right? So I'll share my screen really quickly here to kind of walk you through it and make sure everything works. And I think maybe before I jump into it, what I'll do is kind of like, walk you through, let me make sure there's nothing playing. Let me just kind of open this up really quickly and walk you through. I just took a couple notes here just because I feel like it's easier than slides. But essentially, my story, I didn't come from that Ivy League like I mentioned, right? I didn't come from top programs. I didn't have like those elite networks like I mentioned, like people that just their parents went to Harvard, MBA, Stanford, all these things, or they're just on Wall Street or in San Francisco in Silicon Valley, and they just have the hookups. And that really wasn't me. And so I kind of like decided to take you kind of through it, and here what you see is pretty much like my first role, right? Landing my first big role at Dell. Let me maybe go a little bit, zoom in here for you. Just took a little pictures. I walked through this this is where kind of my first big role, B2B sales at back in 2013, right? Coming in, earning about 55K a year plus commissions, selling software to IT directors and so on. Actually, I learned a lot, right? But obviously I wanted to kind of, move up and do really interesting things. And then I made like a pretty big jump, right? From B2B sales to being in product marketing, jumping to LinkedIn in San Francisco, earning about 135K. So that was like a pretty big jump. And honestly, I didn't have a network in San Francisco, like I mentioned here, right? I didn't really, have a marketing background either, which was super interesting, right? But despite that, I was still able to kind of like get myself in there, position myself very well, and transition into product marketing. And so this is me at LinkedIn, coming in. I pretty much came in as a product marketing manager, and then later on, I jumped to product marketing lead. I got promoted a couple of times there. This is me right here in the middle with the Talent Solutions group. And honestly, that's where things got really interesting for me, like being able to be involved in like big projects, international projects, international launches, pricing, packaging, or a lot of really cool things. I learned so much. Obviously, I was there. It was like a $2 billion business and grew to a $4 billion business by the time I was out for a couple of years. And then was another big move, right? This is where I kind of took a lot of risks, and I basically, relocated to Paris and to join to relocate to Paris to join Payfit, which was, a hyper growth, Series C B2B SaaS company, come in there as a global product marketing director, right? Heading product marketing. And it was through like an amazing, really fast career growth there, because it was like, I went from, managing projects to basically, leading an entire department in a hyper growth organization that's changing over and over and over again so fast, right? From one product to multiple products, from one pricing strategy to multiple different pricing strategies, right? From small teams to bigger teams. We went from, one country to multiple countries, France, Spain, Italy, and things like that. So just absolutely UK. It was wild, right? Really, I learned so much. And then I needed another big jump to become VP VP marketing amenities, earning over 250K, right? And 250K, first it was 100 or about 190K, then 250K in euros. But honestly, that earning that much in Barcelona, Spain, I mean, you're pretty much, around a 300K salary, like in the US, if you're like in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, New York, whatever. It's like, that's how much that commands, because the cost of living is so low. So for you to be getting paid top dollar out there, it's like you're literally living like a king. And so here, was a really interesting time, right? It's like coming in, reporting directly to the CEO, managing the entire go-to-market strategy revamp, going from outbound to inbound, going from about 12 people on the marketing team to 45, basically 4xing the growth year over year from the inbound growth that I did there, and 3xing the business revenue year over year. So absolutely just crazy period, going from 3 million in annual recurring revenue to over 12 million by the time I left, right? And just absolutely crazy. And so I think one of the key takeaways here is that, like, I didn't wait really, I didn't wait to for opportunities to come my way. I created these opportunities, right? And that's something that's just really important for you to understand. I positioned myself for roles. I upskilled myself. And so what I'll do right here is just kind of like, maybe pop up my iPad here and tell you a couple of things of what I noticed, right? So I jotted a couple of notes here, but basically one of the things I see is that most people chase jobs, right? And that's not what I did. The top earners, they basically chase problems to solve. So when they see that, like, companies are raising money and they're looking to scale, they're opening new markets, they're expanding their product strategy from one product to multiple products and things like that. Like, there's a need to bring in talented people who have a unique set of skills to be able to be successful there. And that's pretty much the kind of stuff that top earners look for. Companies that are in a situation, maybe they're having a retention issue, maybe they're having a growth issue, an efficiency issue, and basically understanding that, right? Networking with people to find that out. So that's like one of the big things, that you don't just chase jobs, you chase problems to solve at the right time. The other thing is that people network randomly, but one of the most important things to do is to build relationships throughout your entire career, not just when you're looking for a job, but like literally all the time. You're just networking, you're connecting with people and so on. And then the third piece is that, like, most people wait to be promoted. And the thing is that, like, honestly, in a company, it's going to be very hard for you to get promoted and, like, every 2 years and get like a 20, 30, 40, 50% increase in your salary is just not going to happen if you stay at that company. Now, I'm not saying you have to job hop all the time, but a big part of just, moving fast in your career is, like, moving up, but also moving out whenever you need to. And so those are the kind of the three things that I really want you to understand. Most people chase jobs, but what you need to do is actually chase problems to solve. Instead of networking randomly, you have to make sure you're constantly networking. And then you want to make sure that you're not just waiting to be promoted, because there's a lot in there, and a lot of it is not your fault. Sometimes, it's not the right opportunities that are coming up on time internally. Maybe they don't have the budget. Maybe they don't have enough, people, right, to actually justify a promotion for you to get more scope, more responsibility, more people to lead, and so on, right? And so let me kind of hop back in here, is that, like, that's why I created, like, after I've spent my entire career kind of moving super fast in my career, I decided to kind of like package everything and put it down to like 5 simple steps, right? And so some of these steps is pretty much, I'll walk you through in a minute, right? But this is how I went from IC to VP in about, under 5 years, literally. And so here it is. First things first is kind of like, you got to master the current role you're in, like the future VP. So you have to understand right away, what are the big problems of the company you're in? Is there a problem with growing revenue? Is this a problem with, sales and marketing connecting together? Is this a problem with retention because customers are losing, are leaving the company, they're churning? So understanding where the problem is coming from and positioning you to be in these projects, even if it's not your department. Typically, your department is involved, right? And so that's one of the things. The second piece is kind of like building strategic relationships with decision makers. You're not working alone. You're basically getting promoted. You're networking throughout the entire time, because it's like, not only do you need to network inside your company, you also need to network outside, right? And so one of the things you need to realize is that, like, for example, a couple things here. When I was, one of the things that I'm always doing is, like, when you're on your LinkedIn profile, I'm always kind of going to the network section here and just kind of like looking at all the different people that I may know from the school that I was at, people that I may know from, recent activities, people that I may know from similar roles. I'm always just kind of clicking here, going on people's profiles, seeing people that are, that are VCs, that are managers, that are founders, and like throughout my entire career, just going on here, looking at their profile, and then just kind of like connecting with them and adding a personalized note. So these are the kind of things I did pretty much every day, going in here, doing 10 to 15, just reaching out to 10 to 15 people a day, just kind of connecting, because the algorithm really helps you when you're doing that, because LinkedIn is a search engine. It's just looking for talented people. So I'm not going to go too much into details now, but essentially making sure that you're building relationships with people, you're positioning yourself for leadership roles. And how do you position yourself for leadership roles? One is obviously being aware of the opportunities that are going on at your company. But the other thing is also, as you're running projects and you're doing really cool things at your company, one of the things I was always doing, and maybe I'll do a quick pause for some reason, the internet's slowing down. So maybe let me just pause this real quick while it loads and then come back. So one of the things you want to do, right? We're back right here. So this is the internet with the issue with the internet. So we're back. One of the things you want to do is just constantly be building a brand, right? How do you position yourself on LinkedIn? What do you talk about? What do you post about, right? This is super, super important. Like just making sure that you're posting, quality content. Every time I was completing a project, I was always kind of like, sharing wins about it. Every time I was winning an award or kind of, doing anything in the market, mentoring people, juniors and so on, I was always posting about things like, and so this is really important, being out there, posting content, whether it's just once or twice a week, that's enough, right? All kinds of content. Doesn't mean you're creating it. You could also be like reposting. Obviously, if you like to create, you can create your own. So many ways, whether you're doing pictures, you're doing video, you're doing saying you have to go there and then start doing all these things, but just making sure that you're present, even posting once a week, just once a week on like a project win, lessons learned, things like that is really good. And so it's positioning you for headhunters to find you. The other part is kind of like preparing for leadership roles. So one of the things that I always did was kind of like, make sure that like I'm reaching out, I'm listening to podcasts, I'm downloading books, I'm going to conferences, I'm doing all these different things, buying courses, because obviously there are a lot of things that you learn when you're on the job, right? But there are also a lot of things that you have to just go out there and fill those gaps. And so just kind of understanding how to create your own kind of learning journey to make sure that you're filling any gaps you need to be, And then the fifth part is basically kind of like, securing the offers. Just kind of like, how do you negotiate? How do you position yourself? Not just salary, but the whole thing, right? And understanding like, how do you win in your first 90 days? Like for example, when I absolutely nailed it in the first 90 days and I got a promotion right away. I got in there with 110, 120 K and then got bumped up to 150K. Obviously when you adjust with like, US, Europe, and it was just like absolutely amazing just because I crushed it the first 90 days and they're really, really important, right? And so just you need to make sure that it's like, you're really following this through. If you want to accelerate your career from IC to VP and then start earning anywhere from 55K to all the way up to 250K plus, right? More depending on where you're located, San Francisco, New York, so on, right? One, you got to just realize that like you got to master your current role. You have to understand how to think like a VP in that role you currently are, solving bigger problems. Two, building relationships inside the company, outside the company. Three, making sure that you're positioning LinkedIn, branding, different things like that, like mentoring juniors at your company, doing all these things. So just make sure that you're visible, right? It doesn't mean that you have to play this extroverted game. I'm an introvert, but you got to understand the game and how it works. It doesn't mean you have to be someone to make sure that you're visible, because hard work alone won't get you the opportunities. You'll have to really make sure that like people see what you're working on. Then preparing, filling any kind of skills gaps, and then obviously when you're positioning yourself, right? The only reason, obviously I knew I wanted to move to Paris, and so I looked for jobs there, and then I got headhunted for a role and for all these things, right? Just because I was visible, people were looking for me. And then when I became a CMO and a VP, like people were also looking for me. So that is important, but then also how to negotiate, how to present, how to communicate, how to interview, and how to nail those first 90 days. And so that's why I actually created this track program, right? And so it's going to be, basically everything I've learned throughout my entire career working across, San Francisco, Washington, D.C., Paris, Barcelona, from everything I learned, right? Whether I was in sales and product marketing as an executive. And so all in one single product, right? And so you'll have tons of videos, different modules, just kind of like explain every different aspect of how to fast track, templates, cheat sheets, actual scripts that I use as well myself, all that in here. And right now we're actually running it for a discount. And so it's going to be about, $97. Now, this price is obviously going to increase, right? For me to be giving that much value in such a small, for a small fee, it's definitely going to be increasing. But right now, I just want to make it as accessible as possible to everyone. So what's included, you get like the acceleration framework, you get the leadership visibility playbook, networking blueprint, interview mastery guide, how to prepare for interviews, how to nail them, all the different rounds from screening to hiring manager to cross-functional collaborators to the business case, all the things. And then a lot of practical examples as well. And so when you're in here, honestly, there's a bunch of stuff. You'll pop in the community. There'll be like, this is the portal. You'll have a ton of all the videos, all the different sections I just mentioned are going to be right here. So you can just click on them, watch the videos and the training. They're going to be very much like this, where I'm kind of like walking things, I'm sharing things, I'm going on the screen, I'm talking, I'm using my iPad. And then you'll have access to like all the scripts, everything that I have. You'll have access to this Google Drive with everything there. So there you go. Honestly, this is kind of like what I wish I had to accelerate my career. Like I mentioned, I don't come from Ivy League. I don't come from privilege at all. Where do I go? Let me go and close this out right here. Right, I don't come from privilege. I grew up in DC, relocated to San Francisco, didn't want anyone there, didn't know anyone there. Like I relocated to Paris as well. So honestly, so much that I wish I would have known. And it's all in that one product, right? So here you go. Honestly, just go take a look at the product. I'd love to get your feedback as well. This is absolutely what I wish I would have had. So click on the link below. It'll take you to the page. Take advantage of the discount that's happening right now, and see you inside. Take care.